Hey chess friends, National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com, and today we have game of the day. With the white pieces we have Leela Chess 0, and with the black pieces we have Stockfish. Let's get right into it. Let's see what we got. We have d4 and d5. Now we may see a Queen's Gambit or a Queen's Gambit declined, or maybe ready, something like that. We'll see what we have here. London system, c4, Queen's Gambit, and we have a Queen's Gambit accepted. Oh yeah, it's going to get very aggressive here. This is a very aggressive line against the Queen's Gambit. So if it's something you want to play, of course you do need to do your research, but it is an aggressive way to play against the Queen's Gambit. Now we accept it, and here white has gambited upon, and usually gambit is for rapid development or something greater. So after d takes c4, knight f3, saying, hey, we're going to get this pawn anyway. It's doubled. We don't care about it right now. We can also have two center pawns if we like later on. Now, a6 and e3 being a standard move here, so we can take back on c4. a6 is about b5, so we can defend our extra pawn that we got for free. So after b5, there's a4. You want to attack this pawn chain as quickly and as fast as possible, 100%. a4 attacking the pawn chain, saying, hey, if you do not do anything about this, this undefended rook cannot help. And we're going to take on b5, which means c4 is going to hang, and you can't take back due to rook takes a8. So we have bishop b7 from Stockfish here. Very nice move. Just defending the rook that's on a8. So if a takes b5, we can take back, and the rook is defended. Now, bishop b7 and b3. One thing you want to do when you see a pawn chain, attack a pawn chain. Not all the time, but many times, more often than not, if you see a pawn chain, you attack the pawn chain, especially if it's not yours. So, of course, we're going to break this up as much as possible. Stockfish realizes that this is a lost cause, and instead of playing b4, we play e6 here, actually, just to make sure that our bishop gets out. This pawn's gone anyway, c4. We're going to give it back when we want to. And after e6, b takes c4, b takes c4, and now bishop takes c4. Very strong move, getting the bishop out in one move, not two. Sometimes you'll see bishop e2, then captures, and then takes, but you have to move that 2 times to do that. We were able to move the bishop out in one move. Bishop takes c4. And again, when you see a pawn chain, attack a pawn chain. c5 and we lie. Very strong stuff here. Instead of castling, we did c5. Now after castles, there's knight f6. And then after knight f6, there's knight b to d2, which is a very strong move as well. Knight b to d2 is extremely strong. It's just getting the pieces out. And then we're going to say bishop to b2 to put the pressure on the long diagonal. Use the file with a smile as well. But after knight b to d2, there's c takes d4. Opening the lineup for our bishop. Knight takes d4 because we don't want an isolated pawn. If we take this way, the pawn's isolated. It's a huge target, and black doesn't have any weaknesses. So c takes d4 wouldn't be, or e takes d4 wouldn't be good from white. Knight takes d4 from Leela Chess, and knight to c6. Instead of going something like bishop e7 and castling. Very interesting. Knight to c6, getting rid of this knight already before it becomes very strong. Okay, knight c6, captures, and queen to c2. Putting pressure on c6, so bishop to e6 is actually in the air now. And bishop d6 says, do it anyway. I don't care. But look at how these bishops are so sharp on this side of the board. They're bearing down on white's king side. Wow. This is pretty strong. Let's see if we can develop an attack from it. Bishop to d3, attacking the c6 pawn, not going for bishop e6 because there's tactics. Even queen c7 could help, just like what was played in the game. Queen to c7, defending the bishop. The best defense is offense. So instead of just defending the bishop, and we're going to defend it, but also attack h2 at the same time. Queen c7 and then bishop to b2. Now we're bearing down on this very long diagonal here. And, you know, it's very strange, right? Because you have moves like f4, g3, h3, right? As a human, you would probably do what? Defend the h2 pawn. Makes total sense here. But actually, which these are moves here. But instead of passive defense, you want to go for more of an aggressive offense, even though you're losing a pawn on h2. But bishop to b2 is actually saying, hey, instead, I'm going to let you have the pawn. You can have it, which Stockfish says, oh, yeah, I'm going to take those. Bishop takes h2, that's check. King h1, and then we're going to bring that right back, bishop to d6, because we don't want to be trapped with g3. Well, we can't play it anyway, but we just don't want the bishop to be trapped on h2. So now we have this long diagonal that maybe we can use later, but after bishop to d6, there's now f to c1. This move here does put pressure on the c6 bishop, saying that, hey, yeah, you got your pawn, but I'm going to put so much pressure on you, tied down, of course, with the a pawn, the a6 pawn being weak as well. There's a lot of issues here. We're going to try to do as much as we can and pressure you at the cost of the pawn I gave you. Rook f to c1, rook to c8, defending the bishop here. Bishop takes a6 is in the air. But if you play bishop takes a6, there's actually a nasty move of bishop takes g2. Ouch. Yikes. Tactics win games. Queen takes c2. You're in trouble on the double. That's not fun there, right? So let's get out of the way. So after rook f to c1, we have rook to c8, queen to d1, getting out of the way, and then we have queen to b7. We don't want to stay into a pin like this, or a self-inflicted pin, or an x-ray where the queen sits right there. So queen to b7, a double attack here on the bishop and the g2 pawn. So what happened to the doors of your house? Look at this. Bishop takes g2, and then king to g1 and rook takes. But if you look at this, after rook takes, queen takes c1, and you look at this position, imagine you having doors in your house. Of course, you should. Most houses have doors in them. Now, the doors are all open, every single one of them, and the windows, and anything or anyone can come inside. And if you look at white's position here, this is exactly what that looks like right now. This is very tough, as white has no shelter around the king besides this pawn, but that's not really much. Maybe one of the doors are closed, but the rest of it is wide open here, with the bishops looking like monsters on this side of the board. Well, after queen takes c1, it's black to move here, guys. What do? Do you castle? You're also, you got to be aware of this right now. So do you move the queen? Maybe queen a8, strange move, but you also got to watch out for the c8 square. There's a check back here. There's a lot going on. Now, remember this. I'm going to give you a quick tip here. The best defense is offense. Black to move. What would you play? Here it is, guys. Well, instead of something crazy, maybe like queen a8, or like, defensive, maybe moving the queen c6, maybe bishop c6 is no good. You got to make a queen move because the bishop here. But instead of moving the queen at all, well, let's just go knight g4 for the score. Wow, that's a big boy move. Oh my goodness. What are you doing? Well, let's just see. If bishop takes g7, well, GG, start a new game. That's not a move. Bishop h2 is mate, and we great. Look at that. That's beautiful. Queen's defending the bishop. Even though we are attacked, it's mate. Nothing you can do about it. So you have to defend the mate. Very strong. So after knight g4, let's go back to knight g4. There's bishop e5 saying, okay, I'm still going to attack your queen, but I'm doing it in this manner. And now, of course, if bishop takes e5, thinking you're going to mate, well, you are very, very wrong, and it's very sad because now king takes g2 is in the air because the queen's gone. Ouch, that hurts. This is a family channel. So queen to d5. Queen d5 is a very good move here. Queen c8 is extremely scary, but we're actually able to get out of it. After queen to d5, there's bishop takes d6, and then queen takes d6, and king takes g2. So if we look at the material count, white's down a piece, but white has no king shelter. So now this is an all-out attack here. Queen h2 check. King f3, we take on f2, and what do you do? And king takes g4, because if king to e4, being one of the only moves of the two, you play queen takes to e3, and that's mate. Start a new one. Ouch. Okay, well, king takes g4, and the king is in the middle of the street. Imagine crossing the street without looking both ways. This is exactly what's going on with this king right here on g4. Unbelievable. Now, surprisingly here, I'm going to let you find this move here. Black to move. What are you going to do? f5, h5, queen g2, queen takes e3. What are you going to play? Here it is, guys. Now, this is a miraculous move. In fact, the moves like f5 and h5 actually lose. Insane. Nothing that we would ever see. These moves actually don't even work the way that you think they would. The reason being is because our king at the end of it right now is still very unsafe. So in fact, the move is actually castles here. Now we can go for everything else. Now, and actually check this out. We're down 2 pieces now, says Stockfish. 2 pieces, 2 times, 2 pieces, right? Castles, knight of 3. Okay, and the king is in the middle of the street, h5, and we live. So if you take, we're going to take on f3, and this should be enough to win the game. King f4, though, we're going to stay around the knight, and an e5 check, trying to divert the king away from the knight. King e4, and then instead of playing f5 and opening up more lines, instead, engine move, queen to g3. Queen to g3, 2 engines playing here. You're going to see engine moves. Bishop c4, of course, pinning the pawn because f5 is coming. Queen g4 check. Of course, a king d3. You could just do this and then takes. This is winning for black. You do have a queen coming, and it's also easier to play as black here. Check, like you have the extra bishop, but that's not really helping. We actually have pawns. Think about this. We're up pawns. So yeah, we're down a piece, but we have the pawns to compensate us, and the king is in the middle of civilization, nowhere away or nowhere around anything that we want. as white. So queen check, king takes e5, rook e8, and we great, hitting the king on e5. Like the king goes from e1 to castling to e5. Like you can't even draw an arrow like that. It's just so amazing that this king's in the center of the board, 2 pieces down for black, and we're decisive here. Now this move right here is extremely hard to find here, guys. You may think it may be rook d8 check, and maybe queen g6 check. What do you think the move is? Maybe queen takes f3? Black to move. Once again, your move. What are you going to do? And here we go, guys. After king to d6, queen f5, cutting the king off from freedom, from running back into civilization this way. We're actually going to cut him out of anything, cut him off from the file. So queen f5 is very strong. Bishop to e2, and then there's queen e6 check, king c5, and rook c8. We just take the queen, right? King d4, and then we queen d6. When you find a good move, look for a better one. Gotcha there. Most of you would have taken the queen. Absolutely. Of course, why not? But if you take the queen here, you know, you could still win this, but it is difficult when you do have, it's more difficulty involved because there's 3 pieces, which is usually equal to a queen, or even more, honestly. But you actually don't take the queen. You actually always look for the better move if it's possible. Rook c8, king e5, or king d4, and then queen to d6 check. So the king can't go, obviously, this way, so we have to go to the center of the board. And instead of taking the queen, rook e8 check. Oh my goodness. And now if you go king f3, not for me. Queen f6, that's mate. And we great. The game is over. Look at that. But that didn't happen. Instead, the only move is knight to e5. Now getting back one of our pieces, says Stockfish. Rook takes e5, king f3, and then rook f5. We're going to bring the king right back to us. King back on g2. This is insane. King went to e1, to d4, all the way back to g2. And let's see if we got any more king moves we can make. Rook to g5, king f3. Okay, queen f6 check, king to e4. I mean, this is insane. A dancing king, right? Man, look at those feet move. King d3, rook d5 check, king c3. And you know what? We'll take the queen now, says Stockfish, because we're up now. Now we don't have to worry about that extra piece you had. You only have 2, which is easier to do, especially when you have these extra pawns like black does. Rook takes c1, and the rest is honestly technique. Let's see it. h4, bishop c4, queen to d6 check, king e2. Lots of moves left, so we're going to fly through this. Queen h2 check, king d3. Queen to g2, threatening the queen. Very easy. Rook to c2, and we step out of the way with a check so we can push the pawn. King to c3, we check him first, and then we push the pawn because this is our extra asset here to get rid of one of these pieces, and then we're actually going to queen anyway with the other pawn. Now, after h3, there's bishop d5 or other pawns. g5, rook c4, queen b6 check. Lots of moves here, guys. Lots of moves because there's just technique. There's still a lot to do. But more easier to play for black than it is white because white has no pawns, no shelter. That happened even after bishop takes h2 and bishop takes g2. And what do you do? And this game is really bad for white here. So after rook to c3, there's queen e2, king b3, queen d1 check, right? We're just pushing this pawn. And thank you for the other piece. Now you're only down. Those 2 pieces you had, they're gone now. We're even. At least on pieces we are. Not on the board, though. We are definitely winning in all aspects here. Beautiful move, queen h4, saying, oh, we're going to do it this way. It's so funny. You could have done it so many ways, but almost like in a troll moment from Stockfish here, just saying, all right, take the queen. Yeah, of course he doesn't take it. Playing g4 now, and queen to g5, or queen g5, g3, and we're going to push this pawn right through with ease. With ease. We take the rook now. Let's watch the last few moves here. King b3, queen c6, a5, g2. King b2 and queen c4, cutting off the board. You can easily just use the king as well, or just queen and mate in a few. King b1, g1 check, king b2, and queen b, or queen g to c1, checkmate. And we great. That game is over. That was a beautiful sacrifice there, a double piece sacrifice in a way there, which is very nice from Stockfish. That's an amazing game. And hopefully you learned something. Definitely play this video back to see it over and over again. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's game of the day. I'm National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com, and I'll see you guys on the next video.